all right, you want to lose this last 5 to 10, maybe 15 pounds, right? That stubborn fat that doesn't seem to want to go anywhere, whether it's in your belly, on your hips, in your butt, on your thighs. We're going to talk about this. I first want to show you this book right here. You probably heard of Sun Tzu before. This is called The Technology of War. You may have heard of The Art of War. And I have a lot of different editions of The Art of War. But there's this guy who translated Sun Tzu's original text from the original manuscript. He actually learned Mandarin Chinese to translate this book. And he found that there's been a lot of alterations over the years. He found that the name of the book is not The Art of War because the translation really wasn't the word art. Art implies more open-ended creativity, whereas technology implies an exact way of doing a certain thing. So he actually found that the actual name was The Technology of War. So anyway, this book is about a master strategist and what he did to win so many wars. And a lot of the book is about gaining advantages or creating advantages so you can overcome an opposition, a problem, or an opponent, versus just using force or working harder at something, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So we're going to apply this to weight loss. So we first want to just kind of briefly mention your disadvantages. Let's say that you're menopausal, you're getting older, your metabolism is slowing down, you have chronic insulin resistance, you may have atrophy in the muscles, which makes it a lot more difficult to lose the weight because you need that muscle to help with the burning of the fat. So I'm going to cover every single advantage that you can use to overcome this problem. But I want to say something. Many times when I talk to people, they will tell me, well, I already tried that. It didn't work. Okay. And then you find out the way they were trying it wasn't quite right. So I'm going to talk about that as well. And also some other times they were doing it right. They just didn't give it enough time. They didn't know what normal was as far as losing weight. They thought because my spouse loses 7 pounds a week and I only lose 2 pounds or 1 pound per week, then that means it's not working. In fact, if you're losing over 2 pounds a week, you're just losing water weight. It's not actual fat. And an average person over the age of 40, if they can lose 1 pound a week, that's actually pretty good. Also, you need to understand the principle of it's not lose weight to get healthy. It's get healthy first to then be able to lose the weight. Because many times in the process of getting healthy, the body doesn't necessarily lose weight first. It might get rid of the cravings, get rid of your hunger, help build muscle, but the body doesn't actually naturally like to lose fat at all because fat is a survival mechanism. So anyway, you want to be able to do something correctly long enough and consistently enough so you actually see results. It's kind of like me with my guitar teacher. He kept insisting that I go really slow and I really learn through repetition the patterns of my fingers, right? Well, in my mind, that's too boring. It's too slow. So I actually practiced a little faster, making all sorts of mistakes. And I never was able to achieve where I really wanted to go with that. So the key is first knowing what type of things you can use to leverage this problem, right? Your leverage have certain advantages to leverage the disadvantages, just like you'd have like a crowbar that you apply like a 5-pound pressure to lift a 500-pound rock on something. We want to do the same thing with weight loss. So let's first start with doing the ketogenic diet, right? Maybe your carbohydrates just are not low enough. You want to go as low to 0 as far as carbohydrates as you can. And I have a video on that as well. It's called the Keto on Steroids. I have another one. I will put both links down below, but you want to keep your carbs as low to 0 as possible. The other problem I see with keto is you may be doing a dirty version of keto, not the healthy version. It makes a big difference because yes, lowering carbs will help you lose weight, but having quality ingredients and making sure those ingredients are really healthy can actually help you lose even more weight and get healthy at the same time, which is what we're trying to do. And also, just because something on a label says it's keto friendly does not mean it's keto friendly, okay? And then, of course, combining intermittent fasting. That is a necessity, okay? Had one person did keto, but they didn't want to do intermittent fasting. So they were basically eating high fat, low carb keto snacks through the whole day, thinking that they're going to lose weight. So just because something is keto doesn't mean you're going to lose weight, especially if you're snacking or eating between meals. Then let's get into the point of fasting, intermittent fasting. How long are you fasting for? If you're at 2 meals a day, go to 1 meal a day. Okay. If you're at 1 meal a day, maybe you have to go to 1 meal every other day. Also, periodic prolonged fasting is really going to help you. Let's say on the weekends, you do a 48-hour fast. Let's say once every 2 weeks or every month, you do a longer fast, maybe even 5 days. I mean, that right there usually will solve the problem, especially doing a lot of diets or have very severe insulin resistance. However, that being said, I have some people that do that and they still have a problem. So we're going to go through some more things too. So we have doing the healthy version of the ketogenic diet. We have doing intermittent fasting more aggressively. And one thing I want to mention about fasting, if you're doing prolonged fasting and you don't feel good, what that means is there's something not right. You should feel wonderful when you do fasting. I'm not talking about when you first start out and you're transitioning into the keto fuel. I'm talking about when you're already adapted, but you feel tired, you're hungry, something's not right. In that case, you're probably going into it with nutritional deficiencies. So you better be taking electrolytes, sea salt, a good amount. You better be taking B vitamins, vitamin D, maybe vitamin C. And you may even need, if you're doing prolonged fasting, a really good amino acid product. So that way you don't have the calories with actual protein. You just have the broken down amino acids so your body can use that to fulfill whatever need that it's trying to fulfill. And it's usually going into fasting without having the right nutrients. And many times it's just adding more salt, but very minimally, you need at least 1 teaspoon, not a heaping, but just a level teaspoon of sea salt spread out through the day. You put it in your water. That will usually make you feel a lot better. So those 2 things right there will pretty much handle for most people any stubborn weight, but I'm going to keep going. And by the way, as I go through this, I will put a more detailed video on every single topic that I'm talking about because I don't want to make this video 2 hours. Okay, so we're kind of isolating what area you need to focus on more by covering all of them, so then you can put more energy into that advantage. Okay, let's talk about sleeping. Some people are sleeping, but they don't feel rested. They're not waking up feeling rejuvenated. And I'm talking about if you don't have a quality of sleep, it's going to affect your blood sugars. It's going to raise cortisol. You should be able to sleep and wake up and feel refreshed and have energy through the day. If you don't have energy, then we need to look at your sleep. I have a ton of videos on this, but I'm going to put some down below that are my most recent ones. But as far as sleep goes, there's several things that can help you sleep. Number one, doing some type of physical work around the house, outside, primarily to get your mind off the stress. So stress is one of the biggest inhibitors of sleep. Doing a form of exercise where you're really working 1 or 2 muscle groups, but you're not working the whole body, so you jack up cortisol and get your pulse rate so high where it can't come down, because a high pulse rate could keep you up at night. And then, of course, we have the temperature being slightly cooler. The other thing is your room, making sure you don't have any extra light, especially not watching your computer screen right before bed or your cell phone, because that blue light can inhibit melatonin. We also have a few supplements you should be taking before bed to help you sleep. Like vitamin D is a good one, zinc is a good one, and B1 is a really good one. Even though B1 gives you energy, but it won't prevent sleep. It'll actually help you sleep, because sleep is an active thing. It's not a passive thing. There's like the sleep pressure that pushes you into these deep delta waves that you're going through at night to feel rejuvenated. It's a pressure that pushes you into the REM sleep as well. Trying to sleep an extra half hour or even an hour a day will help you greatly, even if you have to take a nap. All right, next topic, gut issues. If you have gut issues, it's going to be hard to lose weight, because typically if someone has a gut issue, they have a hard time with fiber. So they'll eat all these vegetables and salad that I'm recommending, and then they end up like feeling bloated or distended. That is going to be a problem. So if you have gut issues, you might want to try more carnivore ketogenic than the one with the fiber or probiotics. I have a very good video on that, but we can't have this bloating in your gut if you're going to lose this extra 5 to 10 pounds. I just want to touch on one patient that I had who had a gut, and every time he went on a vacation down to Florida and later on the beach, didn't even change his diet, but the lowering of the stress, okay, and the sleeping helped his gut go down to, I mean, like it was flat when he came back. It was bizarre. So that would be the stress factor as well as the sleep factor. So now let's bring up this topic of stress, right? If you're going through stress, it's going to be a big barrier, right? Why? Because of cortisol. Cortisol can jack up your blood sugars almost as much as eating sugar, because cortisol turns even ketones and fats and protein into sugar for that quick energy. That's why even the hormone name cortisol, another name for it is called glucocorticoids. And this is why people, when they take synthetic cortisone or a steroid, end up gaining a lot of weight because of what it does to your blood sugars. In fact, it can cause diabetes because it's elevating your blood sugars. So a couple points with stress, okay? Physical work around the house, out in the environment, long walks in nature, vital. Taking more B1, important. Also, ashwagandha is a great herb, and it acts as an adaptogen, so it helps you tolerate stress much better. Vitamin D will help lower your stress greatly. But just from the topic of stress, when I've worked with people for many, many years, sometimes those people that have really stubborn weight are just so darn serious. The intensity of trying to lose weight and the stress of it is keeping their adrenals revved up. So I told one lady, okay, who's doing everything right, just to stop worrying about losing weight. Okay, stop weighing yourself on the scale. Just relax. Don't try to lose weight so hard. Do everything in your life that is non-serious, okay? And just keep a real light attitude. I swear, when she came back the next week, that was the only time she lost weight. That includes stop watching the news, stop watching things on the internet that rev up your adrenals, have a relaxed, a carefree attitude. All right, next topic, pre-existing health conditions. So many people are on medications, so many people have health conditions. That's the area that you need to address. I have a video on every single possible health problem that you might have. Do a search, find out how to address it naturally, and try to resolve that. If you have some type of condition that's inflammatory, you need a lot of vitamin D, okay? And that can drop the inflammation and drop the complications of that problem, especially if it's an arthritis, an autoimmune problem, and that can help you lose weight right there. Another barrier, the health of your liver. If you have a fatty liver, okay, you could be doing things right now to speed up removing that fat off your liver, because the more fat off the liver, the more weight you're going to lose. All the fat on your body has to go through the liver. And if it's all gumped up with fat or cirrhosis or inflammation, that's going to slow down your progress. The best thing to take for a fatty liver, in addition to what I've talked about, like keto and intermittent fasting, is to take TUDCA as a supplement twice a day on an empty stomach, and choline a few times a day. Both of those will help speed up the dissolving of the fat, and it also will help manage your cholesterol levels as well. In the food that you eat, right? We want to eat food that has energy in it. The more processed something is, the more cooked something is, the less life it's going to give your body. So cruciferous vegetables are just loaded with energy and life. But let's say, for example, you steam them, right? If you steam them, some of them will be easier to digest. If you ferment them, you enhance more life to that vegetable. Why? Because now we have all these microbes that actually are giving you all these additional benefits to that food. So that's giving more life to the food, more life to your body. The same thing with the food that you eat. If it's grown on soils that are just dirt, which means void of microorganisms, and you eat that food that's grown on that, you're only going to reach a certain level of health. It's not going to be very high. And so when you really look at it, the health of your body is dependent on the fertility of that soil, which is basically the density of microbes that are mobilizing these minerals that are not alive, like they're rocks. So you need the microbes to mobilize that, to pull in the plant. So then the animal eats that, and you eat the animal and you're eating something healthy. It'll actually give you more health. All right, what about bad genes, right? You have genes that keep you fat. Well, you got to pick your parents more wisely next time. And I'm just being very sarcastic. But there are things that you can do that can help influence the genes. It's called epigenetics. It means above your genes. For example, a lot of things I've already mentioned, fasting, keto, reducing stress are all things to help support these gene actions that you want, right? And avoid the other ones. But there's other things you can do. These are called hermetic factors that add a little bit of stress, not too much, just a little bit, to cause your body to get stronger. And that would be, of course, exercise, prolonged fasting, but also cold therapy. Taking a cold shower can actually stimulate brown fat and increase your metabolism and help you lose more weight. You can also do the same thing with a sauna treatment. That can help you get the edge and give you more advantage over this problem. And so what we're trying to do is to give you multiple advantages to actually achieve the goal. Now, another hidden barrier which keeps you at a certain set point is chronic insulin resistance. So there's many things you can do to improve that in addition to the things I just said, which will improve it. You can take regular apple cider vinegar. It'll make a big difference. Just with all your water, you just add a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. And if you add cinnamon in there, or just take a cinnamon as a capsule, that can also help your blood sugar significantly, as well as make insulin more sensitive. Berberine is a very powerful herb that can mimic metformin to help speed up the results of insulin resistance. And of course, exercise is another thing that can help it, and vitamin D can help it. There's many things on this topic. I've done a more extensive video and I will put it down below. All right, so now let's talk about exercise. Here's the thing. Exercise is responsible for like 15% of this problem, okay? But 15% could be the difference between success or failure. Diet makes up the majority of the weight loss, okay? Now, there's two types of fat. Primarily, you have the visceral fat in the gut, okay? And you also have the superficial fat, which is just below the layer of skin, right? And so women have more of a superficial fat layer, especially in the hips, thigh, and buttocks. And that type of fat is a bit less influenced by insulin resistance. So if they do the usual things that I'm mentioning with insulin resistance, they don't normally see the significant impact like they do mainly in their midsection, which is the visceral fat, which is more influenced with insulin resistance. Okay, so that's why all these other things will help that. In fact, that's easier to get rid of than the superficial fat. But exercise can be more of a tool for that than anything else. Why? Because it's going to build up more muscle mass to give you more metabolism right off the bat, especially if you have atrophy and especially if you're postmenopausal. So the other thing about exercise is that there's some mistakes that you can make. Exercising over soreness, that's really bad. That's overtraining. That'll keep you from getting results. I had a patient who exercised 6 hours a day, 7 days a week. That was her biggest problem. As soon as we reduced it, boom, she lost weight. I had a patient who was a guy who was exercising 7 days a week. I got him to work out 1 day a week and he started to lose weight. So overtraining is an important thing. Don't ever exercise over soreness. The other point is doing enough exercise to create a stimulus to make sure these muscles grow. Okay. And so you want to use enough volume and exercise to create that effect. How do you know if you're doing it right? Well, the next day you're sore, not just the next day, the next 3 to 5 to 7 days. That would be the right amount of exercise. And that's how you can judge it. And then you just let your body go through that process. But what I mean by soreness, and I'm talking about, let's say your legs are sore, but your upper body is fine. So maybe on the other days, you're working the upper body. So you kind of divide up the body in maybe 3 different sections. Maybe you're working your chest and your shoulders one day, and then your back and your abs another day, and then your legs the next day. And that way you can create soreness, and then you want to let your body fully recover. This way, you're doing it correctly, and then you need to do it consistently long enough to have it work. So I want you to type down below what you think you need to focus primarily on all the things I talked about, and then come back after you've done it and report your progress. But this will definitely work. If you haven't seen my recent video on plateau, that probably is another one to watch too, because I get more into the details of the food. Check it out. I put it up right here.